You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're wrapping up the fourth test between India and England. In the end, it was a fairly comfortable win for India, although it was an engaging test match. The finale was a little bit of a procession as Shubman Gill and Jurel put their foot on England's throat. Max, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. So I like the title we've gone for on the YouTube for this one. Just nice, straight to the point. India win.
They did.
I think that kind of sums up how we feel about it. India win. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like to an extent. We said all of the important things that need to be said about this test yesterday. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want more of a deep dive, then head back a day, and you can hear us talk about England's collapse and the pivotal 30 or so runs that Rohit and Jaiswal put on last night. This will be quite a quick wrap-up show just before we go to work and do our real jobs. But important, nevertheless, to cover the key points of the day. Before we get to that, just a reminder that you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Cricket Pod. You should like and subscribe to The Cricket Podcast wherever you follow or watch. Speaking to you, people on YouTube, mainly there. And if you want to support the podcast directly, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod, which you can find in the show notes, is how you can do that from a miserly sum of just £4 per month. Max, do you want to summarise today's cricket?
Sure. So we all know what the maths was. India looking to reach 192. England trying to take 10 wickets. That's where we were. A decent start for India last night, left them 40 for none, and they picked up where they left off. England belatedly turned to James Anderson, and it didn't go that well. They gave up with that plan, went back to the spinners. That didn't really work either, and it was 84 for none before Joe Root managed to get one to spit out the rough and catch Jaiswal's outside edge. And that was England politely knocking on the door and India not realizing that it was a canvasser trying to sell you some carpet cleaner. Opened the door, had a peek through. England stuck their foot in, but not before Shubman Gill and Jurel managed to slam the door back in England's face for the afternoon session. And they very comfortably carried India home after a reasonably sized wobble in the middle where Bashir took 3 quick wickets and England had a sniff. But like I said, Gill and Jurel saw to that with aplomb. And it was a pretty comfortable ride for the final 70 runs or so, as you said.
So there's a few things I think to talk about here. There's Jurel and Gill's partnership. We talked about Jaiswal and Rohit yesterday, and I think when it comes to a chase like this, getting to 84 before you lose your first wicket makes things much easier. And how England bowled yesterday was a problem, as we discussed. So there's that. Then there's the Gill and Jurel partnership that gets India over the line. And then there's the question of whether England had a chance. And I think we'll start with the hypothetical one first, Max, on this occasion. Did England have a chance? So they did cause a proper wobble, and it was 120 for 5 at one point with a new batter, obviously. That's what happens when someone's out at the crease. I think this test match overall will go down as a match that England let slip. Did they let it slip maybe a little bit today as well?
I think it was always an uphill climb given the start India got yesterday. I mean, the 3 quick wickets, let's put it in the context of me waking up to watch the cricket. I checked the score when it was about 100 odd for 3 and went back to sleep for half an hour. And then it was 120 for 5 and I got up and watched it. So that would say to me, I thought England had a chance, an outside chance, but enough of a chance that I thought this is worth watching and not just catching up on what happened at the end. But ultimately, it was always going to be difficult. And Shubman Gill, Jurel batted really well. I don't think you can complain too much from England's side about them letting anything slip. I don't think I mean, they were better than yesterday with the ball. I don't think they were particularly good after lunch with the ball. They had sort of that period where they took the 3 wickets and put a bit of pressure on, but I do think they missed their lengths a bit this afternoon. Possibly, a little bit of inexperience, bowling a little bit too full, and I think that made it slightly easier. But I wouldn't say that was the reason England didn't win. Like, the reason England didn't win is because India played magnificently yesterday. England blew it a bit yesterday, and ultimately Shubman Gill and Jurel were very mature again and solid. They read the situation quite well. I mean, the pitch was turning a bit, but it wasn't doing anything dramatic, so they just prodded and poked their way single by single to it's closer to the target, and then once it was pretty much done, they had a bit of fun and finished it with a bit of panache. But I think ultimately you just have to give credit to Gill and Jurel for the way they handled it in that afternoon session.
Yeah, Jurel picks up man of the match, doesn't he? Which is probably overall deserved. Yeah, he gets 130 runs across the test, which is almost enough to cancel out England's second innings by himself. Which is handy, isn't it? That leaves you with what, 19 wickets or 18 wickets with the rest of the team. Yeah. If you include it's not out to get.
It's not just the number of runs, though, is it? Like, when they came in the game, like the first runs came to stop India from falling too far behind when things were looking pretty dicey, and then today they came when India were under a little bit of pressure, and he completely calmed things down and steadied the ship. And in Kane Williamson fashion. So I think, aside from the runs themselves, the importance of them and when they came in the match, they are the most impactful runs I think that anyone scored in this game, apart from Joe Root's 100. So very well deserved, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's another probably slightly quietly good knock from Shubman Gill as well, who for some reason has been called Solomon Gill on TNT Sports by Alistair Cook. I don't know where that came from, but he was Solomon Gill for the UK TV audiences for about half an hour this morning. 52 off 124 for him. No fours, 2 sixes. That's the way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't fours are overrated, mate. Stick to the big numbers. If we don't hit a 6, I'm not going to bother hitting a boundary. Why?
No, in all seriousness, it's a run of 3 good tests for Shubman Gill now. Like he was under substantial pressure. There probably was a world where, with Rahul and Kohli fit, he might have been, or available, he might have been the one that was dropped for the 3rd test. Instead, he gets 34 and out 104. Then he gets 91 in the 3rd test. And he picks up a total of 90 runs over the 2 innings in this test. I've realised I've done that 1 test too fast. So that's actually the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th test that I meant, rather than the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, because we haven't played those yet.
Yeah,
or the 5th one yet.
Premonitions next week.
But it's another Indian player, another pretty young Indian player, realising some talent on the test match stage. Obviously, we've seen him be very, very good in white ball cricket, but trending in the right direction now, Max, in tests. He's got his average over 30. He's past the Zach Crawley threshold.
Zach Crawley. Well, we know what happens. Yeah. Once you hit 30, it's just sky high from there on. Zach Crawley hit 30 and he hasn't looked back. He's now England's most skillful batter in the history of Test cricket. So the sky really is the limit for Shubman Gill now. He's got over the big 30. And I'm amazed actually that is like he's only just got there. That's surprising. I didn't realize his record was that sketchy. But I guess, like, with the similarities to Zach Crawley in terms of sticking with the guy that you think is the right man. I mean, we were calling for Crawley to be dropped so many times. I'd imagine there's probably people in India who were looking at the way Shubman Gill was playing, saying, well, why is he still in the team? Maybe this is, these 2 cases are a little bit of evidence to suggest, if you do really rate your guy and you think he's got the talents, you do stick with him through maybe a quite extended fallow period. The question obviously is at what point you give up. Like there's the sunk costs fallacy and all the rest of it. But, showing a bit of faith in someone who clearly has the talent based on his one day and T20 abilities. And, with the advent of maybe a slightly more aggressive style of cricket that Jaiswal in particular has shown in this series and Rohit's shown a bit of as well. Maybe there's, a lot of value in using that approach as a selector.
Well, I think as Jaiswal learnt from Ben Duckett, we could probably say that Shubman Gill learnt from Zach Crawley, and India as a whole from England about how to select their team. So if you are Indian, you're welcome. We're doing this for free. We're giving these lessons for free. We should at least,
all in the name of Test cricket. We
should at least get the credit, I think, for that. One thing that struck me, Max, and not to pump ourselves up too much, but I think we called it about right yesterday with the England being 50 runs too short here. I don't know if you had a look from a data perspective at run rates through the day over the matches, but basically the stretch of cricket that's happening now is the really difficult part and has been the really difficult part on the previous 3 days. And that's the bit that England didn't quite get to. I don't know why that is. It's probably a conditions thing. So, like, I guess the cracks open up with the heat of the day, and it gets to whatever time it would be in India now before starting to cool off a little bit and playing a little bit easier in the last hour. But right now, when we're talking, is when England wanted to be bowling, and they needed an extra 50 runs to do that. And I do wonder. If they, from the perspective of could they have won this game, I think that really is the key thing. Those extra 50 runs, because it means that England would have batted through to the end of the day. It means that India would have been delayed. They'd have spent less time batting when the pitch was over the course of the Test match proven to be a better pit surface to bat on, and more time batting during the period of the day when we had seen it be a minefield. Now, we don't know for sure that it would have been a minefield today, but the first 3 days there was a pretty clear trend there, and that I think if you're looking into why England lost, it's probably actually goes back to Jurel's runs yesterday morning and extending India's innings enough and getting them close enough to England that the whole Test match
shifts
the timeline, if you like, shifts.
So we're gonna chalk this one up to the passage of time. That's the reason for England's defeat.
Well, that and DRS, obviously.
Obviously, of course, yeah.
Max, can we take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll I don't know. There's probably a little bit of praise for Jaiswal and Rohit, probably a little bit of praise for Bashir, and it would be funny to laugh at Michael Vaughan, who actually wrote a whole think piece on DRS yesterday.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where my coffee is refreshed and we're about to continue talking about the 4th day between India and England, the 4th and final day. Max, what do you want to do? DRS, Shoaib Bashir, or Jaiswal batted well again?
Let's save DRS for the end because I think that's so much fun. Let's do the cricket first.
It was, I said that opening partnership broke the back of the chase, and once again, Jaiswal is at the forefront of that. I know Rohit Sharma makes the 50, but it's more sexy to talk about the guy who scored the runs faster and is younger. Feel free to talk about Rohit if you want, but Jaiswal's good, isn't he?
Rohit's had his time in the sun, hasn't he? He doesn't need more praise. Jaiswal, well, actually, we spent a lot of time praising him over the last week as well. So, maybe we should just stop praising both of them. But I mean, it was when you talk about what you were talking about just before we took a break about the run rates and that's exactly what Jaiswal did. Put England to the sword, really. I mean, England's bowling last night was pretty poor. Their bowling this morning was a lot better, but they still took the fight to England. They identified that the best way to break the back of a tricky chase is to get some quick runs up front and make it so much harder for the other team, because I mean it's hard enough trying to defend 192 and take 10 wickets, because you've obviously got to balance the risk and the reward, the wicket taking, catches, etc., with where you place your fielders to prevent the runs. And I think that was kind of evident in the way Shubman Gill and Jurel were able to go about it this afternoon, after England had managed to wrestle back a little bit of pressure and put it on, because of the way Jaiswal batted to start with and get them to that sort of 80 odd for none point. It meant that England, they had to attack, but also had to leave a couple of guys back, because if you just let them have an easy boundary, it becomes too easy to chase those runs down. And that is what allowed Jurel and Gill to play the way they did. Dead batting, nurdling it around, taking 1 or 2 and over, and looking really comfortable without having to drive out the rough or do anything that increased the risk of losing a wicket. Like exactly how Jaiswal got out, driving out the rough and one spitting a bit. There was one occasion where that almost happened to Dhruv Jurel and it fell short of Shubman Bashir. But the way Jaiswal and Rohit Sharma batted to start with meant that they didn't have to take those risks, and just made the rest of that chase so much more manageable for India. So you have to give a lot of credit to the guys up top for the way they batted and set the chase up.
If you want just a really sledgehammer to crack a walnut example or illustration of this, when Jaiswal's out, the run rate is about 5 and over. The run rate at the end of the innings ends at 3.14. So do the maths on that. After Jaiswal's out, India go from scoring at 5 and over to about 2.4. So the run rate halves. Now I think that is
they didn't hit a boundary for about 20 overs.
Yeah, I think that is because it was probably easier to bat early, and what England bowled 8 full tosses in 5 overs last night. So that obviously helps the run rate situation, but also it's a big weight off the rest of the team if you are able to do that. Shubman Bashir bowled well again. He picked up 3 for 79, so that's 8 for the match for him. I think he was on a hat trick at one point. He completely, and this is there's some credit has to go to Bashir here. He completely neutered Ravindra Jadeja, 4 off 33, 45 minutes of just dead batting basically.
And then he hit him with the world's most dangerous wicket-taking delivery, the old full toss.
Yeah, and that it bored him into submission by bowling well. It's the Ray and Ahmed approach. Rather take a wicket with a bad ball than keep bowling good ones. But I think that some credit has to go to him. And I don't know. It's sort of selection questions are often quite counterfactual, in as much as you never really know whether an alternative option would have done better or not. But I think we can say with some degree of certainty that it wasn't a disaster picking Shubman Bashir. Over the 2 matches, he's picked up 12 wickets, which is pretty decent at an average of 32. Maybe like that average to be a tick lower, but he bowled very well in this test. Yeah,
and let's not forget that the previous test was played on a very, very good batting surface, and there wasn't a huge amount in it for the spinners until maybe quite late on in the game. So he had a lot of work to get through as well. So very impressive. I mean, obviously the 31 over spell that he bowled in the first innings was the real highlight from him. Just the control that he showed with that at such a young age is really impressive. And it does look like England have by chance or by design stumbled upon something that is potentially a real, could be a gem. It will be interesting to see whether he gets much of a shot in games in England, or whether this is purely an overseas games in Asia kind of selection, but he certainly looks like he's got the attributes and the control that you expect and want from your leading finger spinner. So yeah, very impressed with him for how he's come into the side and performed. And it's it's a good sign for England's spin contingent, which has been, not the hottest in the last 10 years, shall we say. Mainly because Jack Leach spends half of his time on the sick bed, the poor bloke. But
yeah, like I mean, I think Bashir did bowl well. I also think I think overall the spinners that England have selected have been all right. I think that it's sort of worked, hasn't it? Like if you look at the narrative, it oscillates quite wildly from, oh look, all this crazy selection with release points and things like that has worked wonders for England. Look at them tear through India. And then like a day later it will be, well, the difference between the two teams is that India spinners are way better than England spinners, and England spinners are toothless. And I think the truth, as ever with those kind of things, is somewhere in the middle. Like I think Hartley and Bashir have bowled well, and I think they've also showed why they're probably not going to play 100 tests.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
and that's okay. I mean, like I think it's okay to be a test match specialist for one part of the world. Like that actually makes a lot of sense from a bowling perspective. So hopefully England, package what they've learned, package what those two have learned, and can take that forward to the next series against Sri Lanka or Pakistan later in the year, and use the experience that Hartley and Rayan Ahmed and Bashir will have now to good effect. I think your point about Leach is a good one as well. I like it is unavoidable. Well, look, yeah, not unavoidable. Like Jack Leach is an extremely injury-prone bowler, so relying on Jack Leach to be fit is a little bit of a fool's errand. It's we were talking about India.
You need a plan B.
How a lot of their players are in their mid-30s now, and it's not reasonable to expect them all to play in every match, because they're, by athlete standards, quite old men. They're going to get muscle injuries. Jack Leach is in that category of player as well for slightly different reasons, but it would be unreasonable if you're an England fan to expect him to play 15 tests a year. Like you might get 7. It's unfortunate though that of the 7 matches we might see from Jack Leach this year, only one of them will be in India, and only one of them, and in that one, he picks up an injury that now requires surgery. And I think in games like this is where a slightly better bowler, slightly better spinner than
Jack Leach would have been massive for England today.
Might have been more useful. I mean, like, just to go back to that full toss point, that's one of the things that Jack Leach, with the exception of that one random test in Australia where he completely lost the plot, it's one of the things that he doesn't do very much. He is quite consistent. He's quite a boring line and length bowler, and this was quite a boring line and length pitch in a way. And I think that was probably a little bit of a miss. If you actually want to look at reasons that aren't like DRS or whatever, like if you want to look at structural reasons why England might have lost this test when they were in a winning position, or why they were unable to bowl India out, the absence of their best spinner is a better argument to make than just whatever tea leaves that you're reading. Max, DRS, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean,
I
don't have any thoughts on DRS because there aren't any to have. I can't believe it's a conversation. I've got plenty of thoughts about what people are saying about it, which is that they've all lost the plot. I don't know what's going on. Is there some like Russian Twitter bot hack that's decided before the UK elections later in the year they're going to plant seeds of discontent around DRS that might feed into the political discourse? I don't know. I'm genuinely at a loss as to why people are still harping on about DRS. Right? But what? Because I mean, there was the thing with the pictures and the stumps and like the last test, like fight, that was a bit weird. But like people they've just lost. Like it's rattled, isn't it? People are rattled again. It's like the rattled ashes, but the DRS. Like everyone's been talking about this ball to Joe Root where you can literally see the image where more than half the ball was in the line of the stump. So like it's out. So like, why is anyone even talking about it?
Well,
It was in England. It was an English journalist posted a thing on Twitter saying like, look, here's the example, here's the rules. It's out. It's close, but it's out. And then there were people having a go at him for being a whinging like crybaby, just like, what are you talking about? I'm just saying that it's out. Everyone's lost their minds. They just need to shut up and get on with it. It's so
it's
confusing.
bizarre. I mean, I've probably got a little bit more sympathy for the Indian viewpoint on this as a collective. If you have
why
to
are
take a
England
side,
whinging?
yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
well, not England. I mean, I think, like we were saying yesterday, there's 1% of people are dumb enough to think this is a conspiracy, but that because they're so fucking dumb, they elicit a reaction from everybody else who's like, "You're dumb, mate." And Michael Vaughan in this case is the dumb one, who's written an article in the Telegraph saying that we need to have cameras inside the DRS truck, presumably, and like the only reason you can think that is you think that there is a man in that
grand
truck
conspiracy
who is changing where the ball bounced to benefit India or something like that. And that is quite that is quite an inflammatory thing to say. And I can see why there is a reaction to that kind of thing, because what Michael Vaughan is saying there is that India are cheating when obviously,
which is a disgraceful thing to
like,
allege, like with zero evidence.
Even the most basic understanding of how the DRS system works or Hawkeye works will tell you that that is impossible. So I can see why you'd be angry with Michael Vaughan, and you'd probably be right. I mean, like the guy is, he's got a bit of a track record. Let's put it like that. He won the 2005 Ashes, established himself as the finest cricket mind of his generation, and then has been working ever since to discredit his own achievement. Basically, it's to prove that it was a complete fluke. So I don't know. Don't get sucked in. Max, I think that's probably it for this pod. Thanks very much for listening and watching, everyone. If you're on YouTube, please do click like and subscribe. We've got a decent number of people watching, and we want to see that subscriber number tick up. We're nearly at 15,000 subscribers, Max. That's good.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
Help us out. We only need like 70 or so subs to get there. We're at the Cricket Pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and patreon.com/the Cricket Pod is where you should go to support the pod. Also, if you're on Apple and Spotify, leave a review. There's plenty of messages. Take them away. We'll be back, talking about more cricket in the near future. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.